Hello and welcome to the Psychic Stories podcast, encouraging conversations about mental health. Today I'm speaking to Gwen Jones. Gwen is the founder of The Inspired Narrative, a website focused on positive news, inspiring stories and personal development, giving a voice and platform for others to share their stories and inspire others. Gwen is also a support worker at the UK charity Mind, based in Bath. Gwen, good morning. How are you?
I'm good this morning. How are you?
Very well. Yeah, very well, thank you. It's been raining all night, but everything is very green and very fresh, which is always nice.
It's nice to have a bit of a breeze, I think.
It is, yeah. So the goal of today is to have an open and honest conversation about your mental health journey, to get some insight into the tools and techniques that have helped you and available to other people. And by discussing your journey, what we're trying to do is to share and normalize conversations about mental health, as often people are not alone in these experiences. Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Gwen, very excited to hear what you have to say about your mental health journey. Take it away.
Oh, okay. So shall I start from the beginning, the very beginning?
You can start the beginning, the middle, the end, whatever makes sense to you.
Okay. So I suppose I was always quite an anxious child. Always scared of my own shadow, as my mum used to say. But never anything like that would never kind of impact my life or stop me from going out playing. Or I learned to surf when I was a bit younger. I did coast steering, things like that. So it was never something that kind of stopped me in my tracks. And when I was, so if I go back before that, my parents divorced when I was 2. And just due to various kind of circumstances, I didn't really have much relationship with my dad, kept in contact kind of thing, but it wasn't very close relationship. And I think as a result, I grew very close with my grandfather. My grandparents collectively used to take us on these kind of lovely holidays, and we just had like a lot of fun with them. But
and your grandfather was your male role model, so to speak.
And he's an amazing man. He worked for BBC. He was a teacher. He worked for the First Minister at one point in Wales. He was very ambitious. He wrote a trilogy, actually.
Okay.
I think it took him 5 years to write.
Wow.
And sadly it was published just after he passed away, but he was very excited about it. And he was always, even in his retirement, he was always kind of keeping busy with gardening and things like that.
And did you read the trilogy?
I read the first book.
Okay.
But it's one of those things I need to go back to, because I know he'd be cross at me for not reading them. We were very close. He taught me how to swim, all those little kind of things. And he kind of passed away very suddenly when I was just turned 16. So he'd gone in for open heart surgery in the July, I think. And he came out and he was fine, recovering quite well. And then he got very poorly and sadly passed away. But it was quite a shock, even though he was kind of, I don't know, very unwell. It was just never something I expected. And
you always expect that person to be the constant in your life, right?
Yeah, it's weird. And somebody, who was it that said it to me recently, that with grief, it's not only the person that you've lost, but it's the future with them that you're grieving as well. And I think that's really powerful, because
that's a good point.
It's been 5 or 6 years now, and there's still every kind of what's the word I'm looking for, not milestone, but when I learned to drive, I whatever, it's I still wanted to ring him up and tell him, I finished university last month, and I want to tell him and see what he has to say, and everything like that. So in that sense, grief never kind of goes away. I've gone off on a tangent here.
But these are what these conversations are about, right? They're we're exploring, your story, and that story isn't linear. The story winds and twists and turns, and that's how our lives go, right?
Yeah. After he passed away, I was in a bit of like a, I don't know, I just didn't really believe it. And I don't know if that was my coping mechanism for a while, where I was like, if I don't believe it, it's not true. You know, we used to play a lot of pranks on him, me and my sisters. And for a while I was like, oh no, he's gonna come back, like I thought, oh, he'll show up anytime now. And I always remember just having this image of in my head. It was often like before I went to sleep, and I don't know if maybe it helped me get to sleep, but I used to just imagine me running up to him and giving him this big hug. And yeah, it's funny to look back at it now of how I was processing it. But anyway, I remember so he passed away in the September, and I think it was the November, there was the terrorist attack in Paris. And as you know, crazy as it sounds now, at the time in my head, I was piecing together, okay, well, he's not here and this has happened, so that means nothing's safe anymore. And it kind of spiraled from that. And I think it's funny with like, when you experience poor mental health, you kind of look back on it and it's all a bit of a blur. And yeah, so I was finishing my last year of A levels. I worked over the Christmas period. I worked at a retail store, and then they took me on then after. So I started another role at the same place in the April. And yeah, it was kind of like, it was quite difficult to go in, but I don't know, maybe in my head I was like, you know, it was a Sunday morning, I was tired, maybe that's what it was. And yeah, this one morning I just got up and I was like, I can't do it, I can't go in. And I went into my mum's room and I was crying. I was like, I just can't go in. And my mum's always been really good with, you know, helping me work through things. And she said, okay, you know, we'll take it one step at a time. I'll give you a lift in to town, and we'll go from there. So she gave me a lift in, and I was like, I don't want to go. She's like, right, just, you know, go up into the building, go up the stairs, kind of thing, take it step by step. So I got to the changing rooms, and I could just feel, you know, and it's kind of building in your chest, and I was like, I just could feel this thing coming on. And I mean, luckily for me, it was quite quiet, so there's no one around, but I was like, I just need to go in the toilet and I need to just let this all out. So yeah, next thing I knew, I was on the floor of a toilet cubicle, kind of hyperventilating. I rang my mum and I was like, please just come pick me up, like I just can't. And yeah, from there she was like, right, I think we need to, you know, ring the doctor and we need to try and get you some help. And
was this, so going back to those, like you said, like the, you know, the death of your grandfather, but also the Paris attacks as well, was there something about, yeah, I can completely understand the grief from your perspective, from your grandfather, but for the Paris attacks, is there something that kind of changed in your mind? Like you said, you just started to feel very, very unsafe, and was that linked to the fact that your grandfather provided that safety net for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Because there wasn't any kind of link to Paris, or the, you know, there was no link between the two.
But it was a feeling of the world is not always a nice place, and I feel threatened, and the one person that I go to when I'm threatened, you know, I'm now on my own, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's weird when you're in that kind of place, because you don't really understand. You just put two and two together, and then it just kind of spirals from there, I think.
Your mum was very supportive, which sounds great.
Yes, yeah. She's dealt with quite a lot of depression in the past, so she understands, which was, you know, really helpful for me. And I've said this before to somebody, that when I went to the doctors, it's quite sad to say, but I was lucky in the sense that I had a really positive experience, which I know a lot of people don't have. And he sat down with my mum, came in with me, of course, because I was like, I can't go in there. So she came in with me, and he was like, look, do you want, would you feel comfortable if your mum went out and you can just kind of, you don't have to filter anything? And I said, yeah, okay. And I sat with him for a good half an hour, just kind of crying, letting everything out, and really establishing, how he could help me as well.
And this was your GP?
Yeah.
See, that is, and I've certainly heard, it seems to be very, very, I think, it's the luck of the draw what GP you have, it seems like, anyway, because there are some stories you hear, like you rightly say, we had it on this podcast, where people have felt dismissed. Yeah. Whereas from what you said, actually, there was no time limit. There was a very empathetic, caring person at the end and trained person as a listening ear, enabling you to give you that support, which is really encouraging.
Yeah.
Because I know that's what people need.
Yeah, exactly. Because what is it, like a 10-minute slot you're given?
Yeah, exactly. So half an hour, listening to yourself is exactly what you need.
Yeah, and I understand. Obviously, they have to have those restrictions in place. But equally, if you know beforehand a rough idea of why this patient's coming in, I don't know. I just think it makes the difference.
And it certainly made your experience feel better, right?
I didn't feel pushed for time. It wasn't a case of, okay, well, here's antidepressants, off you go.
Okay. It
was kind of, well, these are the options. Which one, do you think you could benefit from? So yeah, I was very lucky. It's weird to have to say that you're lucky to have that experience, but yeah, I count myself very fortunate for that.
But I think you're right. Like in a crisis situation, you do there is some luck there, isn't there? Like, you put yourself out there, you want that support, and you hope that you get it, and you hope you get some answers, or at least some options. And like you said, in your situation, you presented with some options, and I'm sure with the pros and cons of those options as well. And that's the way that enables people to make the best decisions based on their own feelings, rather than, just like you said, just being automatically prescribed medication, which may or may not work.
Yeah. And then from there, I think, so I was put on fluoxetine, I think. I was put on that for a bit, and that kind of helped. At the same time as well, I was doing my exams for my A-levels, and my head of year was lovely. I think she's actually now the head of wellbeing, or has something to do with wellbeing at the school, but she was incredible. And then she spoke to my mum, and then she asked to speak to me as well on the phone, and was checking in, seeing how I was. And she said, oh, if you want to go into a smaller room to rather than like the big hallway to do your exam, that's absolutely fine. So I did that, and that really, really helped. And yeah, I think, again, from there, it's like a little bit of a blur, because it was kind of A-levels, then prom, then the summer. And I believe I was offered counselling. And I think I had counselling through the school as well before that. And I just didn't really find that it kind of helped at all. I think I wanted a solution. I wanted someone to just take the pain away, to fix it all, which isn't obviously how it works. But I think counselling works for some people, but it just didn't really work for me. And then I decided to just take a year out to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I remember I went for an interview at a call centre, and I got the job, and I was like, no. I was like, I'm not ready to be doing this kind of role just yet. So I ended up actually working for an agency as a teaching assistant, which had its ups and downs. And I think in the March, so I started in the September, and then in the March it all sort of built up again, and I ended up going off on the sick from that. And my grandmother, so the wife of my grandfather, she'd had hypnotherapy to help her process the grief, and she said, do you want to give it a go, and I'll pay for you. Which again, I was very fortunate to have that. So I started hypnotherapy.
I was going to say, it is expensive, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's that's the trouble, isn't it? I think the kind of free options. Not that I'm complaining, but it is kind of limited.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, from the people I've spoken to, I think a lot of the time people want a kind of solution-focused approach where you're working towards something, maybe. And I think counselling is great for if you need to talk through a problem, or you need to, you need someone there to kind of listen. But yeah, just in my opinion, I don't know.
I suppose as well, it's similar to that kind of that what you experience with a GP, like, finding a right counsellor or a psychotherapist or hypnotherapist is the kind of, it's a very personal experience, and you've got to have, you've got to build a relationship with that person. And sometimes it just doesn't work, and you can try again, or you can try and find something else, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I started with this hypnotherapist, and it was probably the best decision I ever made. And the first session was just kind of getting it all out there for her to, know what we were working towards, what I needed, etc. And yeah, it's weird. I look back on I think it's 8 weeks of hypnotherapy, and
it's quite a short time, right?
Yeah.
What's that? Is that like 8 sessions or so, or we go multiple times a week?
Was it once a week I was going? No, it was once a week. Yeah, so 8 sessions.
So that's not a huge amount, is it?
No.
But it made a massive difference.
Yeah, it really did. And I don't know if you know Cardiff at all.
A little bit. But, a couple of nights out there.
There's a lovely pier there, and she was based within like the area. So I would, once I started back working, I would go down there, because I think the session would be at, say, 5, and I'd finish from the school at 3:15, 3:30. So I'd go down to the pier. I just used to love it. It's like, and every time I go back there now, it's like my special place, because I just feel like so much kind of change there for me.
And there is something about kind of going to somewhere and almost, I don't know, it feels like your safe place, your happy place. Like there's something very physical. Or on the other side, you can go somewhere where it is your sad place, where you leave everything. It's like, I'm leaving all of my bad things here. Now I'm leaving, and you're staying there.
Yeah, I've never thought of that, actually. That's
quite powerful. Idea. I had a friend of mine who was up in. We were over in Morocco having a walk up the Atlas Mountains, and at the top he's like, "I'm leaving all of my shit up here." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And I've never been back. He's never been back, but he says, "I've never felt better." Still, he goes, "All of it's still left up a mountain, and it really helps me."
That's amazing.
Fair enough, that worked. But equally from your perspective as well, like you found that Cardiff Pier is just that happy place where you think, okay, this is where perhaps some really positive change happened.
Yeah. And there was around about the same time, I think, I started set up a blog, which is now the Inspired Narrative, but was blogging with Gwen.
We love blogging with Gwen, and we love the Inspired Narrative.
So I set that up in the January, I think.
That is it's at the digital version of Cardiff Pier. Your happy place.
Yeah, it is, to be fair. It's taken a bit of a back burner recently. I need to kind of sort my my motivation out,
but
or my productivity.
I was going to say, but the whole emphasis of that as well is that it is your outlet. It doesn't need to be, like you said, your full-time thing. You know, you've got lots of other things going in your life, but it's your outlet, you know, for you to be able to connect with other people, to share positive and inspiring stories. And you know, when you've got an internet full of, especially a news internet full of negativity, for example, such as you said, some very real life kind of, you know, horrible things are going on in the world. You know, it's really nice to go to a place like the Inspired Narrative where you can read things which are inspiring and positive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I set that up. The purpose of that was to share my experiences, try and help other people. Because I think it's funny, isn't it? When you're unwell, I found this with a lot of people, the biggest motivator is helping other people. So it might be hard. It
certainly has a very powerful effect on you, doesn't it?
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, I think sometimes it can be kind of hard to get out of bed, but if you know you've got to, I don't know, go to the shops for somebody or do whatever for somebody, it can really help you.
It has that dual effect, doesn't it? It provides you the motivation to get up, which you feel good about, and then you're helping someone else, which you then feel good about. It's a good double whammy.
Yeah. So yeah, that happened, and I remember on the pier there was a guy. I think at the time I'd started doing YouTube videos as well. I used to do YouTube videos.
Okay.
And anyway, there was a guy who's like a sort of Elvis impersonator, I think, on the pier, and I think he had a guitar out. And I remember I walked past him and I was like, oh, I really want to go up to him and ask if I can film him, but I was like, oh no, I can't do it. And I was like, no, let's go for it. So yeah, it was like I went up and I asked if I could video him. I put it on my blog and things, but like that was huge for me, just going up to him and asking him that.
And was that because, like you said, like there was, you know, and going back to the you know, you said the panic attack you had in that work bathroom, was it was there something about that kind of anxiety around other people that really kind of really got it going?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why. I don't know what. There's never been anything like, you know, I wasn't bullied or anything like that. There's nothing kind of traumatic, you know, prior to that happened. I think I just felt like everyone was out to get me. I know I was very angry for a while after he passed away, and as ridiculous as it sounds, I remember thinking, like, why didn't he just try harder to stay alive? Like, why didn't he? Which obviously he would have done if he could have, but you know, it wasn't meant to be. And I think if he had actually survived, he would have lived quite a different lifestyle anyway, which he wouldn't have liked. So yeah, I think it was like a bit of a concoction of things, really, where it's like I was angry at that. I'd lost a safe place. It's always weird, isn't it, when you lose somebody and then you see everybody else in the world kind of carrying on as normal, and you're like, well, how, like, what? How are you carrying on as normal? Like my world just.
Why don't you all stop? Why don't you all go to bed? All of you should be in bed grieving. But it's true, isn't it? You feel like that. It's just like, you know, and I suppose there's an element of thinking like that, you know, you look at other people and you say, that's kind of what I want to do. I want to, you know, not because, and this is the other thing, you know, you never get over grief, you know, it lives within you. And I think someone really encapsulated recently, you kind of grow around it. And I like that. That's a really nice kind of, it's a nice way to kind of define it and accept it. But in that situation, like, sometimes there's nothing more than you want than to get out of bed and go back to your normal life. Yeah,
exactly. I know, I don't think I'm alone in saying this, that you want that, but equally you feel guilty. Like anytime I'd laugh or have a good time, I just felt really guilty. I was like, I shouldn't be laughing. I should be sad.
I should be very, very sad the whole time. But the thing is, what you're really showing, what I find fascinating is it's complicated, right? And it makes no sense. Well, it doesn't make any logical sense, but it's hugely emotional, and these emotions are, are trying to adjust with a new situation. But I hope that you do realize that you can be happy, right?
Yeah, definitely now. Yeah. And in a way, it's kind of a motivator, because I don't know, I said this to my partner recently. I said, life is so short, and I know it's really, really cliche and maybe a bit kind of negative to say, but you can literally go to bed and not wake up the night. You can cut this out if you want.
No, but I'm definitely not going to cut this out.
You could go to bed and not wake up the next day, and you don't know that that's going to happen. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, you may as well give up now, what's the point, and everything, but in the sense of you may as well go for it and put yourself out there, scare yourself to death a little bit, and see what comes back from it.
It's like you said, putting yourself out there, seeing the response, and acknowledging that there's a level of connectedness between, we're not just in isolation, right? We don't, everything we do doesn't have an isolated reaction. Like putting yourself out there in a situation that you don't, you previously are afraid of, or you're very anxious of, can lead to something positive. It doesn't lead to something negative.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's really kind of pushed me forward. But the hypnotherapy, we used to focus on three positives. So it was positive interaction, positive action, which was exercise, and was it positive thoughts? Kind of challenging your thoughts and thinking patterns. So for example, when we finish this podcast, instead of going away and saying, oh God, I waffled, blah, 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 think, oh, actually, I hope that helps somebody, blah, 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 like that.
So really reframing those thoughts.
Yeah. So it was kind of centered around those three things. And she used to she called them secretary goals each week. And there were other ones, but the one that really stands out to me was she set me the goal of starting up a conversation with somebody in the staff room for a week, I think, every day for a week.
Which I assume for you was kind of like, okay, this is a nightmare.
Yeah, and I remember exactly where I was and what school I was in, and I was sat in the staff room, and I think it was in the morning, and one of the teachers was sat opposite me, and I was sat there quietly, but in my head I was like, right, what can I ask her about? What is, half term's next week, okay, well, ask about half term. Has she got any plans on half term?
So you're always having the conversation with her in your head.
Yeah. And then it was like the build up, it's like, right, get it out. And then finally it came out, and I started up that conversation, and
what was the reaction?
Yeah, positive.
Yeah, so not horror.
No.
Not why on earth are you talking to me?
Yeah. So
but it's amazing how you build up those things in your mind. And normally if you just say to someone like, hi, how are you doing? Most people will go, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah. It's rare that you get somebody who's like, why are you talking to me?
Yeah, it's very strange. Well, unless you're in London, and it does happen an awful lot, I've realised as well. Thankfully moving out, I've realised you go for a walk, everyone says hello.
Yeah, it was just like, and then those kind of interactions really helped me, and
just build your confidence.
Yeah, and I'll never ever forget the lady in a co-op on what's the name of the road? I can't remember. Mm-hmm. It's in Cardiff, and she gave me, one of those special like Peter Rabbit 50p coins.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
She I can't even remember what I went in to buy, but I remember going in there by myself, and I was scared, and I was like, okay, it's fine, we got this. We could order, we could speak to the staff member, it's fine, we can do it. Not order, we can pay. So yeah, and she was always really lovely. But anyway, this one time she said, oh, do you know what? She's given me my change. She said, you can have this 50p because you're the first person who smiled at me today. And this was like the afternoon.
Wow.
And that stuck with me, and I've still got that 50p coin. I'll never ever spend it.
Good.
So yeah, it's all those kind of little things that really, really helped me. And
I suppose that's a real kind of positive affirmment, isn't it, of you striking up a conversation, overcoming your anxiety, and it having a really positive reaction in someone. So actually, in some respects, like you said, like, you know, that logic can be reversed, and you can say, well, actually, if I continue not to speak into people, then I'm not going to affect people in a positive way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then my hypnotherapist helped me kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and she helped me apply to go to university, which I did in June. I think it was very last minute. And I got in to go and do journalism and publishing because I already had the grades. And yeah, so that was like a new adventure then to start. And I started that in September 2018. And yeah, I think the last 3 years is where the most amount of growth has happened. So what did so I think it was like the October or November, Bath Mind, so they're a local mind charity in the UK. They had a stall up on campus, and again, it wasn't, you know, I was still kind of fearful of speaking to people. I'd say I've still got like that little bit, you know, even now, like sometimes I just don't, if my phone rings and it's not a number I know, I don't answer it.
Block.
The same number ring me like 10 times. I'm like, oh, if it's important, I'll leave a message.
And they never do. No one leaves messages anymore. I realise there's more and more.
So yeah, I remember I went up, I'd seen this stall, and then I went up, and I spoke to my friend at the time, and I was like, oh, I really want to just go and ask if they would take on a voluntary blogger, like would they do that? So finally, you know, got the balls or got whatever it was, the courage to go and speak to her, and she said, oh yeah, well, you know, I'll if I take down your email address and I'll speak to so and so about it, and we'll, you know, see what comes of that. And it might have been later than October, maybe like November or something like that. Anyway, I kind of chased it up and met with them in the January, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to have you as a voluntary blogger.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I did that for about a year, which I really loved. And again, that was focusing on mental health. We would look at kind of tips and advice and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I'd say it was, I can't even remember what happened during that year, really. Just uni, partying, a lot of drunk crying.
Very cathartic.
Yeah, and then the following year, so that was 29.
Well, I was just going to say, but just on that, you said lots of drunk partying, but it sounds like that you were socialising, right?
Yeah.
That is, from what you were telling me before, the fact that you were just going out.
Yeah.
Partying is a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, when I moved into halls, I was I read this article about like what you should do. And I think I was one of the first to move into halls, and it said on there about offering to make cups of tea.
Were you the tea lady?
I sat in the living room just reading my book, waiting for everyone else to move in, and every time they came in I was like, are you okay to get the tea?
But I suppose as well that kind of goes back to what you were saying about when you were trying to have a conversation with someone once a day.
Yeah.
Like, can I offer you a cup of tea? It's a really nice, really easy thing to say. Most people are not going to say no. really.
Yeah.
But it does always, it's your route to striking up a conversation, isn't it? But also, like I said, doing something nice for someone. I think people underestimate when they do go to university. Like, yeah, it's fun and it's it's great. You meet new people. It's very little learning, a lot of drinking, but you don't. I don't know. There are elements of you that miss home a lot, and you are away from home, you are out of your comfort zone, and it's scary.
Yeah.
So having someone who says, oh, I'm scared too, do you want a cup of tea? You're like, yeah, please. Whilst crying, of course.
Yeah. I remember my mum said, she was like, I'm surprised actually at how well you managed like the first few months.
Yeah.
I didn't really get homesick at all. I think I think I missed the dogs more than I missed.
Fair enough. Dogs give unconditional love, right?
It helped actually. I had a Labrador who was like my emotional support, and he passed away in the March before I went to uni. So I think it would have been harder if I'd had to leave him at home.
Yeah.
But the dog we've still got now, she's a Springer Spaniel, and she's just she's happy. As long as someone gives her love, she's happy.
Yeah. That's pretty much how they work, from my understanding.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, so during this time as well, like, especially as you're, and coming onto a podcast now, like it seems like you've really, really come a long way from what you were talking about when you were younger.
Yeah.
Well, the kind of the tools and tips that have helped you along your way. It sounds like that we didn't touch whether the medication, was useful for you. So I'd be interested to hear about that. But also, you said counselling didn't work for you. So you think, great, I'm going to try something else. Hypnotherapy worked really well. You mentioned exercise. Are there some other kind of tools and tips that helped you along your way that you would suggest other people listening to try?
Yeah. So with the medication, I actually forgot to mention that the fluoxetine worked for a couple of months, and then it almost felt like it made my anxiety worse. So I changed to sertraline, which I am still on now. I haven't come off. I've tried coming off medication, and it's either just not been the right time, or I've just always felt worse for doing it. Yeah.
But I think the important thing is that, like you said, you've moved from one to the other, and you did it quickly because you're like, this isn't working, I need to change.
Yeah. And with regards to tips and advice, I think the people around you is really important, and how, their understanding of mental health, their understanding of your needs and how things work for you. I'm fortunate with my family. Well, I'm not fortunate that they've had mental health issues, but I'm fortunate that they have that understanding, and they know.
And they've gone through those experiences.
Yeah, and stuck by me and supported me, when I've needed it. And my partner at the moment is very understanding, and when we first got together, he hadn't really come across kind of anxiety before. He didn't really know how to help and things like that. So he started following like accounts on Instagram. I'd send him any kind of like visuals that just helped make it clearer. And and he's been great, and he knows, if I'm feeling anxious about something, and I can talk through things with him. So the people around you, and whether you can have those conversations with them. And even if you can't, it's about looking at like the people that you do have around you, and thinking, okay, well, if I need to say I want somebody to go with me to exercise, you might have somebody who's not very good with kind of emotional support, but they'll go with you to the shop, or they'll go with you on a walk or whatever. I think people have different kind of strengths in that sense.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So,
and I suppose it's knowing when you're feeling a certain way, who to contact, who would be best in that situation.
Yeah. And even creating like a little table. I've done it with clients before, where you list out everyone, and you know, when to call them and for what. And it just kind of helps then if you're in crisis and you're like, oh my god, I don't have anyone to call, I can't speak to anyone, and then you kind of look at the list, you're like, oh right, okay, I can ring this person.
Actually, yeah, and I'm feeling like this, therefore I'm going to ring this person. They're good in these situations.
Yeah,
I suppose as well, you were saying, like, connecting with other people, like especially in context of grief, like you experienced, like, you know, your grandfather's passing would have affected other people, right? And sharing that with other people and looking at it from their perspective. And whilst no grief journey is the same, you know, hearing how someone is going through that in the context of the same person, you know, can be really helpful and useful.
Yeah,
as a shared experience.
Yeah, I'd spend quite a lot of time with my grandmother. I'd go over there after school and things, and it would give me that bit of comfort. Sometimes it was quite hard, but it would give me a bit of comfort, but also knowing that I helped her or you know, distracted her for a while or whatever. So yeah, I think that's really important. And
you mentioned exercise as well. That kind of comes up all the time when we're speaking to people. It seems it's such a foundation to people's mental health.
Yeah, and I think maybe the kind of pressure you put on yourself to just watch that, you know, you don't have to go on a 10k run every day. It can literally be a 10-minute walk around the block.
Just moving, right? Just not
literally
sedentary.
Yeah, even if you're in your house and you just kind of dance around or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big kind of hike, because I think when you're not feeling great, that's just it just feels like too much of a task, and then you don't end up doing it because it's like, what's the point? So kind of knowing that even if you set out to go on a half-an-hour walk, even if you just make it out through the door, like that's enough. And recognizing that, you know, each day is going to vary, and it is very much like that up and down kind of roller coaster thing.
Because that's life, right?
Yeah.
Life isn't predictable. Well, it can be predictable, but you know, for most people, there are twists and turns and roller coasters and crisis. But I suppose the thing is, you know, as you're growing older, you're gathering the tools and the knowledge of yourself, so that when the next crisis does hit, and that's the other thing, it always does. There's always another one, you know, unfortunately. Then you've got the capacity and the resilience to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And what else have I used? Journaling, which is maybe quite a generic one, but that really helps
works.
me.
Yeah.
Getting writing.
And I suppose, like, from the inspired narratives point of view, like, do you find that you're equivalent to journaling as well, just the writing?
Yeah, I think so. And it's weird when every time I kind of interview somebody, it's like the positive evidence against any social anxiety that I might have had, that actually it's okay, like it's not scary, I'm not going to die from it. And I think there is kind of a lot of strength in putting yourself out there, and that can mean different things for everybody, because, you know, certain things are harder based on what kind of state of mind you're in, what challenges, what things you find difficult. It differs for everybody. So you don't have to go and climb Mount Everest for you to put yourself out there. Like, it can be whatever is a challenge to you. That's enough. And just recognizing that, I think a lot of people, particularly with like social media, you see people doing all these different things, and then you're like, oh, but I can just about get in the shower today. But that's fine. Like, that's, you know, give yourself some credit.
Yeah, give yourself a credit, but also just zoom into those pictures of other people and you realize that they're superimposing themselves on images. You know, they're you know, yes, people do some amazing things, but a lot of people are kind of, you know, are presenting a version of themselves which just isn't true.
Yeah.
And I suppose, you know, being mindful of that and just saying, well, actually, that's their life, you know, whatever, you know, like you said, like, I'm giving myself a credit. I got up, I got out of bed, I brushed my teeth. It's a good day.
Yeah. But I think definitely the support around you is key, and being able to have those honest conversations with people, and just, I just think, like, especially if, I don't know, if somebody else is going through a similar thing, that you have that communication with each other where you can turn around and say, look, I'm really sorry, but I just can't kind of help you today. It's nothing personal, or I just find this topic very triggering, blah blah blah. But then no one's going to take offense to it, that it's going to be like, one of my sisters is very much like that. If I'm talking about something, she's like, do you just mind if we don't, I can't really deal with that today. And it's fine, and we know it's not, it's nothing personal. So I think it really does matter that you kind of look at the people around you and think, well, are they improving my life or not? And if they're having a detrimental effect, it's okay to cut them out, or say goodbye even for a while if you don't want to completely cut them out.
They're certainly being rude about it, and they're certainly doing it very subtly. Gwen, honestly, thank you so much for being so honest and open about your journey, and sharing with us some of your very personal experiences, and thank you so much for a fascinating, insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very, very welcome, and we'd love to have you on again.
Yes, I'll be back.
And thank you to everyone listening. You can subscribe to us on most major podcast platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just search for Sidekick Community or Sidekick Stories and we'll pop up. And please do give us a rating if you like the show. And do check out our free Sidekick app for iPhone and iPad, a collection of interactive exercises, tools and tips to help you boost your mental well-being. The app enables you to build a personalized well-being toolkit to help you deal with life's ups and downs, and it's completely free. Just to go to our website, www.sidekick.org.uk, and click the download now button in the header to take you to the App Store. Gwen, thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you.